All right, joining me now is our D.C. Bureau Chief, Neil McCabe. Neil's going to be starting a show very quickly here in 2025, a brand new show with Neil McCabe covering D.C. And we bring him in tonight because we now have the re-election of Speaker Mike Johnson. I'm not a huge fan of Johnson. Hopefully he'll behave a little better, be a little more MAGA, put America first, not so much big government, big spending. He did not make it on the first round of ballots of voting like some congressmen predicted he would, but he did make it on the second. Joining me now is Neil McCabe. Neil, welcome back. Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
I'm hanging in there, my friend. All right.
He did make it on the first round, Brannon. It's just that they held the voting open for like what seemed like 3 hours. They didn't. It was supposed to be like a 15-minute vote, and instead of gaveling it closed, they just pretended that time stopped. So the rest of the earth was continuing to turn on its axis, but on the House floor, time stopped. It froze, and they were able to knuckle under, and they were able to get Ralph Norman from Georgia.
Wait a minute. Are you saying they didn't do a second round?
They did not do a second round.
Wow, because I was on the air at 1 o'clock Central today. We were reading that they had to go to a second round. Oh.
Well, I mean,
and that's what C-SPAN was telling us that we were watching, right, Logan? Wow.
Yeah, it was what it would have appeared to be a second round because it took like forever, but it's civilizations rose and fell in the time it took to finish this vote, but they were able to work people over in the cloakrooms, and who knows how many post offices and bridges to nowhere and swimming pools for senior citizen homes were dished out to make this thing happen, but it happened. And
wow.
So there it is. And I think the big win here is for President Trump, Brannon, because, in every conversation, right? And I learned this working in the Army and working for the Catholic Church, right? The first conversation is who is in charge, right? That's the first part. And then once you establish who's in charge, then you can talk about anything. You can talk, and it's amazing the conversations you can have in the Catholic Church or even in the Army or, in a family, once you establish who is in charge. And that's what had to happen. When you do policy discussions or policy fights before the actual establishing of authority, that's when trouble starts. And so what they had to do right away is establish the authority, not of Michael Johnson, who was a good man, but of Donald J. Trump as the leader of the Republican Party. If House Republicans were to dismiss Donald Trump's edict to make Johnson the speaker, it would have opened up an incredible can of worms. And frankly, I don't think McCarthy ever recovered from going through the 19, 20 rounds that he went through, Brannon.
Wow. Look at this. This is from The Guardian. Johnson could not afford to lose more than one Republican vote, and 3 Republican members of Congress initially voted for someone other than the incumbent. All but right. Kentucky's Thomas Massie, who backed Minnesota's Tom Emmer, later changed their votes to support Johnson and secure him the 218 votes needed to hold the speakership for his first full term with the gavel. Okay, so there you go. I guess that was the South Carolina Ralph Norman, who initially voted for a third candidate before flipping to Johnson, indicated earlier this week he and the other GOP lawmakers were seeking assurances on several issues, particularly budget cuts, before lending their support to Johnson. So that's probably where the confusion came while we were on the air today at 1 o'clock Central. It looked like a second vote went in because they voted, and then I guess they stopped, as you said, and then they went into trying to change these people. So apparently, again, you're the expert on this, but they can change their votes once they cast it, right?
Well, the gavel, as long as the gavel hasn't hammered the vote closed, it's a free play. And so they did the old drop and drag, Brannon. They grabbed these guys by the collar and they worked them over pretty good. And who knows? Who knows what was promised? Who knows how many new kids are going to go to West Point or whatever happened, maybe someone will get a satellite named after their grandmother. Who knows, right? But it's done now, and that's the important thing. I will say also that everyone on Capitol Hill is concerned about Virginia Fox. She refers to herself as a congressman. So Congressman Virginia Fox is chairman of the House Education Committee. She was rumored to have been Johnson's pick to be the new chair of Rules, which was the important committee that conservatives were holding out hope that they could negotiate Chip Roy to be the chairman of Rules. Rules is often called the Speaker's Committee because it has a super majority. I think it's 9-2, right? There's 9 Republicans and 2 Democrats. So the majority party will load up the Rules Committee so that there's no way of losing a vote. And every piece of legislation must go through the Rules Committee before it hits the floor. Johnson, and I suspect the Trump team, did not want Chip Roy to be the chairman of Rules because it basically is, he's not loyal to Johnson, and frankly, he's not always loyal to Trump. Virginia Fox had a terrible fall down the stairs, and obviously we're waiting to see what her condition is. If she had fallen and was unable to vote on the House floor, it would have been another calculation as to what kind of voting machinations, because it would have reduced the number of people in the House, and so that would have changed the number of votes, and frankly, Massey potentially could have blocked Johnson by himself if Fox had her fall before the vote. But fortunately for Johnson, she had her fall afterwards. But unfortunately for Fox and her family and all her staffers and everyone in her district, and they're all Americans, obviously she's an 80-year-old woman, 81-year-old woman who is really came to the national stage, Brannon, during the Obamacare fight because she was a nurse in civilian. In her private life, she worked as a nurse, and so she was able to speak to these issues with a level of expertise and professionalism that a lot of the other lawmakers didn't have, because frankly, a lot of them are either businessmen or lawyers, Brannon.
Yeah. I want to talk about what you're going to be doing in D.C. for us in a couple days here. But first, let's go to this video just put out not too long ago by Congressman Tim Burchett, who we've interviewed he's from my state, the 2nd District of Tennessee. Listen to what he had to say.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett just left the House floor. Speaker Johnson is the Speaker again. He was elected on the first ballot, technically.
Technically.
The votes went down. There were 2 or 3, actually. Thomas Massey voted against. And then you had 2. One, I believe, voted for Byron Donalds, and I think somebody voted for Jim Jordan. Ralph Norman, I believe, did, out of South Carolina. And then they held the vote open, and then they changed their vote to Mike Johnson after a little closed-door meeting, I guess you'd say. I was glad to see that the Speaker met with them individually, and then they decided to change their votes. I think it came down to philosophy, and the Speaker gave his word to work with them on some issues that probably are very near and dear to the people of East Tennessee, fiscal responsibility, things like that. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, we've got a Speaker, and that's a good thing. We can start working soon. Thank y'all so much for sending me here.
All right, there you go. All right. Elected on the first round technically, and then he kind of chuckled. So there you go. There you go. That's why there was the confusion among us folks here in the flyover country, if you will. Okay.
It was almost designed to confuse people, Brannon.
Well, it even seemed to confuse C-SPAN, according to what we were watching. But and they've been there a long time. Speaking of being there a long time, you've been a White House correspondent. You've been on Capitol Hill. You're a veteran of this, but you're also a guy that works full-time with the U.S. military, correct?
I'm on active duty orders with the Army Reserve. I'm a public affairs sergeant.
All right. So let's talk about a little military stuff then, since your expertise is there. Biden is supposedly looking over plans to strike Iran. I find that very scary. He gives them billions of dollars. billions of dollars, and now all of a sudden he wants to maybe look at possibly striking Iran before Donald Trump comes in. And of course, as we've already talked on tonight's broadcast and on radio today at 1 o'clock Central with our reporter from Israel, Aaron, the concern is what we've talked about and warned about for years. In fact, even Iran has said, America, be careful. We're very near to you. We're very near to you. We have Hezbollah terrorist cells here. We have Hamas terrorist cells here. We have all kinds of groups here. We have the red-green axis, the red being the Marxist, the green being the Islamist. We have no telling how many terrorists here among us, right? We go and strike Iran right now. I'm not for a lot of confusion, and certainly not for poking a stick in the eye of Iran and letting off terror cells before we get Donald Trump in here on January 20th. What are your concerns as a military guy?
Well, first, let me say that as an Army Reserve public affairs sergeant, nothing I say is, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Army or the Army Reserve. It's not a secret that I've been in the Army Reserve for 25 years. I deployed to Iraq. I've deployed to Kuwait. So, I mean, it's been a part of my life for a quarter of a century. And I don't want anything that I say, Brandon, to be considered as disloyal to our commander-in-chief, who right now is Joseph R. Biden Jr. However, I think it's very interesting that we have yet to figure out what to do with Iran, and the Biden administration has not figured out what to do with Iran. Antony Blinken, one of his best friends growing up in Paris at the private school he attended there, Robert Malley, it was actually thrown out of the federal government because he was a spy. He was basically a spy working for the Iranians and on behalf of the Iranians inside the U.S. government. And so you have this weird juxtaposition of, you have people working for the Iranians inside of the Biden administration. There are other examples of people in the Biden administration who have given intelligence that they gleaned from the Israelis and passed it on to the Iranians and their allies, their cat's paws, Hamas and Hezbollah. And now they're saying, the Biden administration is saying, we're going to strike, we're going to take on Iran. It's this confusion. And I think it's not so much what Biden wants, because obviously the president is not making these decisions. It's his handlers. And because of the president's condition and his health, there's a group of people around the president who are rivaling and working at cross purposes. And that's what's creating the confusion. I interviewed a man at Heritage who referred to it as the Flying Dutchman, like this. The Biden White House is like this ghost ship that is just sort of floating on the ocean, never reaching a home port. And so, if I were the Iranians, I would just be as confused as I ever was. Is, do these people like us or not? And they know that Biden is going home, and all these people are going home, and that Trump is coming in on January 20th. And the President Trump has already said those Hamas hostages better be released. And he's already said that he's not a fan of the Iranians, and he's already told Netanyahu that whatever you have to do with Hamas in Gaza, finish it up and tie it up before I get into office, because I don't want to be dealing with a war in Gaza when I take over. And what's interesting, Brannon, about the politics of this is that Netanyahu is as popular today as he has ever been in the polls. And that's after he expanded the war, refused to do the ceasefire with Hamas that the Biden administration was pressuring him to do. He also expanded the war against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and also strikes in Syria, and also strikes against the Iranians in Iran proper. So Netanyahu has been expanding the war, knowing that he has the blessing of Trump, but also knowing he's expected to tidy this thing up. If Biden is getting tough, it has to be because he's trying to get those hostages home. And if I was the Iranians, I would be just as confused as I ever was. There will be no confusion when Trump takes over. at noon, January 20th. And the sorry chapter of Biden's foreign policy will finally be closed, Brandon.
And of course, we have this headline from CBS News: Trump to be sentenced for conviction in New York hush money case before the inauguration. This is today,
Right.
January 3rd, 2025. Before President-elect Donald Trump returns to the White House, he will return to courthouse. A New York judge ruled Friday. Judge Merchant will sentence Trump for his crimes on January 10th, just 10 days before his inauguration on January 20th. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I do think I have a video, however, I would like to play. If I can find it real quick, our friend Ivan Raiklin was up on Capitol Hill today, and he ran into Congressman Jamie Raskin. Remember, Jamie Raskin is the one who said that, in fact, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Jamie Raskin.
Of course, his father was a Russian asset, by the way.
Go ahead and tell us about that while I find this other clip.
Well, his father was a professor and a writer and an activist. And basically, after the fall of the Soviet Union, we found out, they basically opened the Soviet archives. And one of the things that we found out that Jamie Raskin's father was coordinating with the Soviets and Soviet intelligence working here in the United States. We found out a lot of things. We found out that journalist I.F. Stone was also coordinating with the Russians. We found out that Whittaker Chambers was right when he accused, I forget the guy's name. He accused the guy of being a spy. It turns out the guy was a spy the whole time. But yeah, Raskin comes from a very, very ardently communist background.
Wow. And we'll all remember him saying this. I think this was in February of this year. I think it was. Listen to this, and then I'll show you what he said today, reportedly.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job. We need bodyguards for every mobs that he's disqualified, and then we need bodyguards for 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions. All
right, there we go. Now,
this guy is a monster. He's such a monster.
Now listen to today's comments. Okay, here's Ivan Raiklin. I guess he's up on the Hill. Here we go.
Right.
Here we go.
And Representative Raskin, sir, are you going to do Civil War conditions or what?
Watch it again.
And Representative Raskin, sir, are you going to do Civil War conditions or what?
Wow. So we combine that with now the reports that are all over the internet. Trump to be sentenced for conviction in New York hush money case before inauguration. What do you think the judge is going to do?
Oh, I think he's going to throw the book at him. I think that, he's, he will not be cowered by the presidency of the United States. He is going to make a stand. And remember, this judge is like a local county judge. And these charges, like these bookkeeping charges, Trump literally did not make the entries into the ledger. Instead of saying, and because they made 34 individual entries in the ledger, instead of calling it one crime, they called it 34 individual crimes, as if like April, May, June, each one was its own felony. And so that's how you get 34. We've never really resolved whether this was actually a shakedown by Michael Cohen working with Stormy Daniels or not. that was just sort of left in the ether. I don't have any evidence one way or the other, but I certainly think it's an interesting question. And so, yeah, here we are. Now however, this conviction in New York has nothing to do with what Raskin's talking about. Raskin's saying that Trump is an insurrectionist because the 14th Amendment, Section 3, says an insurrectionist can't hold federal office. But Congress never defined insurrectionist, and there's no actual federal law where someone is accused of insurrection, because at the time of the 14th Amendment, the Civil War was still current amongst everyone, and everybody sort of assumed, everyone knew that an insurrectionist would refer to an unpardoned Confederate. And of course, thousands and thousands of Confederate officers and soldiers were actually pardoned and returned to public life and went on to not only serve in Congress, but also went on to serve in the U.S. military. In fact, in the Spanish-American War, there were many of the senior officers had actually been officers in the Confederate Army because the nation healed and we moved on. Raskin certainly doesn't want the nation to heal and move on. And I do want to make sort of a bigger point, is that one of the beautiful things about Trump's reelection and return is that it is a restoration. And there's so much healing and love and a stitching of wounds, and there's an anger that's going away, and you can really feel it in the country that, all of this talk that a Trump victory would bring pain and anguish and civil unrest, we see none of it. Actually, it's a beautiful thing that we're witnessing in this country, because Trump is actually healing the nation, and his return to the White House is healing the wounds of Mueller and the raid at Mar-a-Lago and all the impeachments and all the trials and all the lawsuits and all the indictments and everything else that was thrown at this man, and 2 assassination attempts. It all goes away when he's sworn in, and it's a beautiful thing for the country, Brandon.
And let's pray that God continues to protect him for that day. CBS News is reporting that Merchant indicated in his ruling that Trump will not be sentenced to serve time behind bars. He wrote that prosecutors agree with this decision. He also said that Trump may appear virtually rather than in person for sentencing. Quote, "It seems proper at this juncture to make known the court's inclination not to impose any sentence of incarceration, a sentence authorized by the conviction, but one the prosecutors concede they no longer view as practicable recommendation," end quote. That's what the judge wrote.
It is interesting, and I have to say that that it's an acknowledgement. Tish James, the Attorney General of New York, has said that she will pursue the lawsuit, the fraud lawsuit or court case against Trump, which may involve his selling off, basically the state of New York seizing his commercial real estate and selling it off, which frankly, if you put $500 million of commercial real estate on the Manhattan real estate market, if you know anything about what that market's doing right now, you will crash the Manhattan real estate market for a generation. And so there's more at stake than just justice.
Let's see here. All right, well, I guess that's about it on that one. So I don't know what Jamie Raskin has planned on Monday the 6th, but it's going to be a very interesting day, apparently.
Well, there were, back in 2017, I was in the House chamber when President Joseph R. Biden Jr., then Vice President, presided over the certification of Trump's election. And there were many disturbances. There were probably about a dozen people screaming and yelling in the galleries, and none of them were charged. Nothing, they were just sort of escorted out and have a nice day, sir. It'd be interesting to see if things go quietly. If I'm going to make the prediction, I'll go out on a limb that January 6th will go through very, very quietly and professionally. I don't think Democrats or Republicans have any stomach for any static or commotion, especially as it comes 3 days before the state funeral for President Jimmy Carter, which is sort of one of those national sort of apolitical events. And so going into the Carter state funeral, I think that it would be very odd if you had any kind of commotion at the Capitol.
All right, let's talk about what you're going to be doing with us in D.C. Next week.
Right. So I will be in Washington D.C. for the inauguration, and I'll be covering it. I'll be interviewing people, and I'll be getting into various events. I'm still trying to get into one of the inaugural balls, but I will be at a special luncheon that's held Saturday for the team of Trump supporters who have commissioned a 20-foot bronze statue of President Trump. It cost about $800,000, and it's now being transported on a truck from Ohio to the Capitol, or to the nation's capital. It will be unveiled on January 19th, and I suspect members of the Trump team, maybe members of the Trump family, would probably attend something like that. And but we'll have that luncheon on the 18th. There'll be a bunch of Trump notables. I can't really say who's going to be there, but trust me, there will be Trump notables that we'll get a chance to interview and talk to. And then, of course, I'll be around the city catching all the highlights. And so I'm looking forward to that. And as a sort of a ramp up to doing a regular program with the Worldview Tube to sort of bring in the newsmakers and the experts and the insiders and my own analysis of the political situation in Washington, and bringing it to people so that they understand what's really going on. Not so much the gloss or the talking points, but actually, what's happening in the future. Rather than telling people what happened, I want to be in a situation where I'm giving people what I call actionable political intelligence, so that if you are involved in politics, you can make decisions based on the information we provide. And so that's something that you do and the other programs do. And I just want to be a part of that, Brannon. I'm very excited about it.
We are as well. Absolutely. Neil McCabe checking in. Big historic process going on here for us at Worldview Tube. Launched this network in 2006. It's based on all my work that I've been doing since 1990 to eventually get us to this point, 2006, to launch Worldview Tube. All we've done, all we've learned, all the technology we've put in, and now we're going to the next level, which is a DC bureau, and we're excited to have Neil McCabe working with us. It's going to be a very interesting 2025, Neil.
Yeah, I'm very excited. 24 was a roller coaster. I imagine 25 will be a roller coaster too. But with Trump in the White House, I think I'll be able to handle it a little better.
Well,
there's just no way. And obviously, we pray that the Lord continues to protect him and to frankly guide him. I really believe that President Trump has opened himself up to be an instrument of the Holy Spirit, and I think that the experience that he's gone through with everything that he's gone through, not just the assassination attempt, has really made him. I think he always had. He always had an appreciation for our Lord and religion. He grew up in a religious family. He attended the Riverside Church in Manhattan regularly. But I think it became real for him just in the last year in a very, very important way, just as he's returning to the White House. And if it wasn't for that, I don't think the Lord would have cleared the path for him the way the Lord did.
Well, let's pray that he has kind of and is having the kind of response Ronald Reagan had, because, as you know, Michael Reagan is a very close personal friend of mine who gave me my start in broadcasting professionally in 1995. And Michael and other authors and Reagan himself detailed really what was a spiritual awakening for him after the assassination attempt on his life. And we obviously are praying that that's the same case with President Trump, and that could be used to help guide our nation toward restoring the republic. Absolutely. Neil McCabe checking in tonight. And Neil, as always, thank you for your service to our country, but also the service you're going to be bringing and are already bringing to Worldview Tube and our audience. All right, folks, now look at this, because we have a big event coming up on Saturday night, February 22nd. We're going to have in a theater here in the Mid-South with a live studio audience, J.J. Carroll, Colonel Rob Maness, and Todd Bensman. And the theme of the evening is going to be border crisis, national security, and the enemies among us. It'll be for live studio audience members in the Mid-South, and no one else will be watching other than you, if you're a member of the Vault. We are not going to live stream this to the public. It'll be for Vault members only, live streamed. One of the many benefits of being a member of our Vault, it's also a big way we fund our network. One of many ways we need to bring in the over $40,000 a month necessary to keep pushing out free programming to you guys, all right? So you get a lot of our programming, the vast majority of it, absolutely free. But after a few days, it does roll into our Vault. But we also are doing a few things only for members. Remember, J.J. Carroll did a 2-hour and 45-minute interview with Dr. Engel, whose parents put her into the MK Ultra CIA program as a child. She did 2 hours and 45 minutes on that. She's an MD. She's 75 years old now. She came to town. We filmed it, and we put that in the Vault. We have this event coming up Saturday night, February 22nd, live streamed for Vault members only. We will not be releasing this to the general public. So please consider joining now. Get access to over 20 years of our radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, and so much more. WorldviewTube.com/vault. WorldviewTube.com/vault. Please go there and join right now. Also, do not forget about going to twc.health/Brannon. twc.health/Brannon. A lot of you are ordering up. I see the emails coming in for your orders. A lot of you are ordering this, and good for you, because we have no idea what these globalists have planned. We do know they are making the bird flu so-called vaccine, right? And of course, the concern is shedding this bioweapon, another bioweapon, which we think it'll be manufactured. Isn't that what experts have been telling us? What's the likelihood that this could shed on us? So we could end up catching it, and thus we need things, like the contagion kit by the wellness company that has the different things you're going to need, like hydrochloroquine and other things, ivermectin. We also have the emergency kit, the blue one. This is what I have, about 5 or 6 of these. This is the one I used when I got pneumonia. Melissa was able to go and get this, look up which of the antibiotics I needed, the amoxicillin being what I needed. And within a few hours, I was on my way back. I had a temperature of 103. I was down for the count. You guys remember that, right? So this is something you need to have on hand. God forbid our power grid goes out. There's an attack of our power grid, or just-in-time inventory, particularly with a lot of medications being made by China, prescription drugs. Make sure you have your stock of this on hand. This is not a joke. Go up to the top of the page, click on virtual care. You can find out about how to do telemedicine with a doctor, with the wellness company like Dr. Thorpe, Dr. McCullough, these guys. You can go to memberships, shop all memberships. They have a program where you can actually get the One Wellness Select for under $10 a month, the next Premier for under $50 a month, the Elite for under $100 a month. Now, the Wellness Premier includes free prescription and pharmacy coaching. The Elite program includes free prescriptions, pharmacy coaching, and free supplements, okay? It won't take long for you to meet the $100 a month with the supplements, because you go to the top of the page, click supplements, and you start finding out that these are supplements like the spike support to help in the any spike proteins have gotten onto you from even shedding on you. That's $65 right there for a bottle. So that $100 a month you pay for the Elite will be paid for pretty quick with a few supplements. So again, go ahead and join at twc.health/Brannon. Please use that logo or that URL. That way you get savings, we get credit, okay? We don't get credit unless you use that URL. This helps fund the program. twc.health/Brannon, twc.health/Brannon. Okay, thank you for doing that. All right, let's roll the music. Let's call it a night here on this January 3rd, 2025. And as always, thank you for going to worldviewfoundation.com. Worldview, go there, worldviewfoundation.com. We are looking for more regular monthly contributors, so we have the funds we know that we need to bring you the programming you've come to expect. Don't forget about our Sunday night church service. I won't have one this Sunday night. I will be back a week from Sunday night as I continue then teaching through the book of Revelation, starting with Revelation chapter 11, verse 1. But folks, your support makes so much of this possible through our foundation. May God save America. Take care.